All right, so next question oh my god, I'm so happy we're about to get that sound that you just made on a recording.
You did just get that. You have a new ringtone.
It wasn't like the epitome of Bobby Yawns, but
no, because I drink
sure we'll
caffeinated tea, so I don't make those noises on recording.
Oh, don't worry, it will happen.
It'll happen. I'll start yawning on purpose to make you yawn if I have to. But by God, I'm gonna get a bunch of those yawns. All right,
we're all talking about yawns, and
I know we're talking about yawns, which are making me yawn. But
fair enough.
There it is. Just pass that yawn around.
Fuck you.
Yeah,
that keeps the audio.
Hello, welcome back to the DMC AdviceCast, the podcast where we have to beep out a lot of things that Bobby says in between giving out bits of legitimate gaming advice.
Have to is a really big word.
No, morally, I think we have to. We received some interesting feedback from that section of the show, actually.
Oh, did we?
Did we?
Yes. Yeah. People were trying to guess at one point what you were saying, and only one person has guessed it correctly.
Wait, really?
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all.
The exact word someone guessed correctly. There were quite a few that were in a similar family.
So you're saying the guesses for what the ghost bleep is were close in spirit.
Yes!
I'm so sorry.
Amazing.
I'm not.
Yup.
You're
Can you tell that two of us
are
are pro-pun and one of us might be a little less on the side of the punning? There's just this silence. I'm pretty sure they may have just walked away from the mic and the podcast.
I started this podcast, and by God, I will finish it if I need to. I will end it.
I assumed they were just getting up because they were scared of how strong I was, emotionally dabbing.
Look, we are not going to try hard to relate to the youths. It only ends badly.
But I'm so good at it.
No, I don't think you are.
So as you can tell, we're getting more professional.
Well, we don't have to introduce ourselves on this one. So this will be kind of more like the format that you folks out there can expect. We'll just talk in the beginning before we get to the advice because it's fun.
Yeah, we've given up on trying to be professional. It's episode 2.
We've done enough.
We fooled you.
So some of the people that follow the blog dungeonmastersconsortium.tumblr.com will have seen me complain about this already. But a couple days ago, I went to a gaming store in the city in which I live, and I won't name any places because I don't want to drag anybody unnecessarily.
What about
me? Well, it's always necessary to drag you. But so I went to a gaming store, and it was one I hadn't been to before because I've only lived in my current city for a year and a half now, and I haven't really been to all the gaming stores because I live in a fairly large city. And I went in, and first of all, problem number one that I have with most hobby stores / tabletop gaming stores is do y'all never, like, even Febreze or, like, run a carpet cleaner? Because all those places smell like stale-ass carpet, and it is the worst.
Yeah, it's weird, like, there are places where I live that smell like the stale carpet, even if they do not have carpet.
Yeah, even if it's a tile floor. It smells like stale carpet. Like, they bring it in with them. It's just, it's not good. So, but that's expected, and it's just disappointing because, like, I don't know. I feel like we could do better as a community. But anyway, so strike one, but I wasn't upset by that point. I wasn't annoyed. And the first thing that I always look for in those kind of shops is, like, dice, which seems really simple, but, like, if you don't have a lot of dice, like, if all you're carrying is, like, the Chessex rectangles of dice, what are you doing? Like, why don't you have cool dice? Like, Chessex makes some pretty cool dice. I'm not, like, knocking Chessex or anything, but, like, when I was a kid, there was a comic shop / hobby store that had, like, just this, like, glass cylinder full of random dice. It was just like, reach in and just click clack your way to glory.
Yeah, my local gaming cafe has that, and it's so good.
And they also had just buy the cylinder. It was like $100, and nobody ever did, but, like, you could just do that. And they also had, like, individual dice, and I think that's very cool. Now, if you're, like, a chain store, like, if you're, like, a Hobby Town, which is an American chain store. I don't know if you guys have it up in Canada.
We have nothing.
But Hobbytown USA is a chain store here. And even they have, like, a little bit of, like, the random dice thing. And that's cool. I wouldn't expect that from a chain store. But, like, if you're an individually owned shop, you should have random dice. Like, if I owned a store and found dice just laying around my house, I'd just be like, cool, I'll just take it to the store. Like, do I recognize this? Is it one of my favorites? No, it'll just go to the store. And that's a really cool thing to do, because also it gives you the ability to be like, oh, are you new to this thing? Here, let me just throw a D20 in there. And that's, like, a really cool thing that you could do. But, so I always check out the dice first. And I went up to this bearded gentleman behind the counter and strike two, because I've never met a bearded dude who worked at a hobby store. And I'm about to get a lot of hate for saying this, but it's true.
Know.
But I've never met a dude with a beard who worked during the day at a hobby store who was enthusiastic about that job more than he was enthusiastic about just, like, chilling behind the counter and not treating me like an interruption. Like,
I mean, I don't know that actually necessarily has a correlation with the beard.
No, the beard certainly doesn't have a correlation.
I will say, as someone who has worked a shit ton of retail,
that's, yeah,
you get that way.
And also, that's sort of the game store experience.
Absolutely.
That's like,
but I'm not
saying it's a good thing, but, like, it's...
Yeah, but it could be better. Like,
it could be. But I don't think it has anything to do with the bearded state.
Well, okay, so here's
no, it entirely is the beard. This is an anti-beard podcast.
Okay, so here's the thing, though.
Sorry. Does Matt know? Oh, sorry, I used the real name.
You're going to
Does
jail
the
now.
beard know?
Here's the thing, though, and I think this does play into it, is it's never a dude with, like, a well-groomed beard. You know what I mean? It's always like
the dude who's, like, growing out a beard, just, like, haphazardly being like, oh, I'm basically Gandalf.
Yeah, or like the guy who's had a beard for a long time, but, like, never trims it or, like, does any kind of shaping, and so it just exists, and it's straggly and a little sketchy. And not to, like, dunk on anybody for their appearance, but, like, especially if you're the owner of a shop where you want to maybe draw in customers, like, maybe do take a little bit of care about your appearance. Like, we as a gaming community could do better. So, strike two. we're not doing so great. So I go up to this gentleman and I'm like, hey, so do you have any like really cool dice? And he goes, the dice are over there, and just like points. But that's not what I asked. Like, I set this gentleman up to like slam dunk a question and talk to me about like what he thought was cool in his shop, or to like be like, well, I only have like the basic chess sets, but if you're looking for cool dice, here's where you could find them, or here's X, Y, or Z. Like, if you have this kind of shop, be passionate about what you do, especially if you're alone with one single customer in your shop. Like, I was the only person in there at 11:42 a.m. on a weekday. Like, what else are you doing other than playing on your handheld, which is what he was doing when I walked in. Like, I get it. I don't blame you if there's no customers in there. Absolutely, keep yourself entertained. But, I don't know, like, when you have one customer in there and they ask you a specific question, maybe actually try and help. Like, I don't think it's too much to ask.
No, like, yeah, full disclosure, I'm a total hermit, and I haven't actually been in a game store in years. Partially because a lot of my game store experiences involved, like,
skeezy dudes.
I may have had a few similar experiences in game shops myself.
Yeah, sort of playing the game store roulette, where it's like, okay, are you going to believe that I'm interested in this?
Yeah.
First, and if you do believe that I'm interested in this, are you going to immediately decide that I should be interested in you because you're also interested in it?
Yeah.
Right.
And if you don't believe me, are you going to immediately jump into, oh, you're a waste of space here, or
there's always that sort of like
to quiz me.
Yeah, oh, the quiz is the worst.
And I'm like, I'm not interested in a quiz. I just want the thing I came in for. Thank you.
So I ended up just looking at the dice at this place and then kind of browsing some books and then leaving, because at that point I just didn't want to buy anything. But like, it did send me thinking, like, god damn, like, there are so many people interested in tabletop gaming now. Like, why aren't people... We live in a capitalist society, for better or for worse. And, like, you would think that people would be trying to take advantage of, like, the fact that tabletop gaming is hitting kind of a golden age. Like, it's popular now. There's lots of different games being released for all sorts of folks.
Yeah. There's so many different games, and they're glorious. The amount of variety right now, like, that you can just pick and choose from is glorious.
Oh, absolutely.
But and like, the stores are always like, there was this one gaming store that was like really popular back home, and I stopped going in there because once I was helping to run a Munchkin tournament at a con, and like, the guy saw me there, and then the next time I went in, he was shitty about it because Munchkin isn't a real game.
Oh, Jesus. No.
And then I didn't even look at playing Magic the Gathering for like 5 years.
And
now we're here.
So
today. No.
Until
you made me, yes.
Yeah. But like, we could, and I get that, like, Amazon is killing, like, brick and mortar stores, but honestly, like, there's an experience that comes with gaming at a store that if you can find a good store...
if you can find a good store, hold on to that, like...
Yeah.
Like nothing
there's an experience
else,
that comes with gaming.
They're rare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's something that you miss out on. It's a big... Especially, like, meeting new folks there and playing with new folks. It's huge. And I feel like they almost kind of cultivate that atmosphere on purpose with, like, the shitty cardboard holders for Magic the Gathering cards that you can browse through. Like, invest a little bit to create an experience. And I know I'm saying, hey, spend money on stuff, but most of the stuff that I've talked about in the long time we've been talking about this is not stuff that costs you money. Like, be welcoming, be friendly. Like, when I was a kid, and
I mean, part of that is also going to be treat your employees well.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So that you actually get the people in who are going to be helpful to customers who walk off the street, and who are going to be actually, you know, feeling like maybe they might want to do that for you.
Yeah.
You
like,
know,
when I was a kid,
I know gaming stores, it's really hard to stay afloat sometimes, so that can be a problem. Like, it's
yeah.
But still.
So, like, when I was a kid, God bless my parents or my mom mostly, for trying to, like, get me gifts for, like, birthday and holidays and stuff that I would really like. And I was super into Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons back in my youth. I've clearly changed since then.
Yeah. Man. What happened?
Right. But of course my mom doesn't know the specifics about what to get me, and she can't really ask without revealing, like, what she's getting me for said occasion. Yeah. And she would always have these, like, awkward, miserable experiences at gaming stores, not knowing what to get me. If you had a staff there who was like, oh, these are the games your offspring enjoys? How about here's the newest booster expansion, or here's something similar that they might enjoy.
Or even, like, here's a fun accessory, like we have these dice bags, or magic binders, or I don't know what magic is.
I mean, card storage for magic cards is totally a thing.
Yeah.
Bedazzlers for your magic cards to make them glitter. I don't know.
Yes. You've got a new business idea, Bobby. I think you can go with it.
It's called getting beat up by Magic the Gathering
cards.
people for ruining cards.
So, I know I'm going to probably get some comments that are like, well, maybe if you stop shitting all over small business owners. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not saying if you own a gaming store, you're inherently bad. I think just the opposite. I think you have an opportunity to do something really great. And if you're doing all these things, if you're keeping a nice, welcoming space that's open for everybody, that's awesome. If you're not doing that, I'm not even saying, like, close your business. I'm saying maybe rethink the way that you handle your customers, because I don't know.
Also, I'm just gonna say, like, empower your employees to, if people are being assholes,
throw them out.
To not, like, especially because there is a lot of, like, you're gonna end up with customers in your store who are actually deterring other customers. Like, if you want to go, if you don't want to go the route of it's just a good thing to do, if you want another reason for it, because I have definitely been in years past driven out of gaming spaces and hobby spaces because of other customers that had nothing to do with the store.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, when you run, like, a gaming business, like, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's business, we can't kick out the shitty nerds, but the shitty nerds are, sorry about all the bleeping, the shitty nerds are making it harder for, like, the good nerds. Who are the people you want in your store, probably.
We're not bleeping out the word shitty. Like, that's fun. Shitty doesn't get us in the dark end of the explicit tag.
Does it? Does it not?
No, it
I don't know how these things work.
It requires like some. It would require not bleeping the things that we bleeped last. But so I might be wrong. I might be off base here, but in my experience, your quote-unquote regulars will spend less money at your shop than people who come in, like, a few times every now and again, because your regulars, or chances are good, are going there to play. Now, if they're a regular who plays Magic the Gathering or a trading card game, then chances are they're going to be spending a little bit more money. But if they're a regular who plays, like, a role-playing game and they just use your space to play, which is a perfectly valid use of your gaming space. Please don't take that away from people. It's hard to host at your home. But what I'm saying is if you have a regular who's shitty, they're driving away a much larger percent of your business. And it's not good. Like,
and if you actually cultivate regulars who are really welcoming to other people, it will actually really help you.
yes.
Oh yeah,
Because if somebody comes in and is looking at something that one of your regulars is interested in, and it's a regular who is actually welcoming, they're going to do some of the work for you. Like, that's the really good thing about, like, nerds who want to share, is that we, as a general, like, as a general rule, the nerds who want to share are really, really going to be excited about the chance to tell somebody new about what
and like
about what
when
they're
they're telling new
passionate
people about, like, you know, games that they play, they're more likely to be like, hey, come to Cool Games Inc. at whatever your address is, and
6969 Cool Street, Weed Sport, New York.
nice. But yeah, they're going to tell people to come to 6969 Cool Street, which most people should do. But yeah, they're going to, you know, promote your business to more non-shitty people that they want to get into the hobby.
Last thing I promise on this topic, because we're now reaching like a
Half
good
an hour.
third of the podcast on this. But so one last anecdote about. Okay, so
Sorry, I'm dying.
Oh my
Are you
god!
okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Could you not on my professional podcast?
No!
No.
Alright, I'm good. Sorry.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right, cutting all of that out.
T went down the
So
wrong
one
pipe.
last thing before we move on from this topic, I promise. But so growing up, there were two shops that I went to frequently for gaming. Hobbytown, which is the big chain, which there are pluses and minuses there, but they hosted a lot of really cool Magic the Gathering tournaments. So it was fun. The other place I went to is more for tabletop gaming, and it was like a local comic book shop. And it is the one that had the giant glass cylinder, but there's a reason I stopped going there. That reason being the owner of the shop. Now, her name is etched into my memory forever, but I won't say it because I don't want... If I say her name, people who live in that city who I know listen to this podcast will probably know who I'm talking about, and there are people that like her, there are people that don't. I very much don't. And she did a thing that I think is a business killer for anybody running a shop like that. And if she saw you like cracking open a book to look at what was inside, she would tell you that she's not running a library and that you needed to buy the book. And how am I supposed to know if I like a role-playing game just by the cover?
No.
You can't do that.
Jesus.
You can't let people explore in your
Especially,
space.
like, literally, especially a rule book, like an RPG rule book. Like,
Yeah.
that's like 100%. Like, that is a reference document that they're gonna want if they're gonna be running it. So it's
and guess
not.
what?
It's not like you're giving anything away for free. It's especially back like now you can actually look up a lot of stuff online and decide. There was a time when you couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing, is people still have this attitude, because I've been to shops since that have this attitude, and it's like, dude, if I was trying to, like, crib stuff for free, I could do that. We have Google, we have PDUFs.
And there's and you know that there's a very, very active pirating community. It's
absolutely.
Not hard.
Yeah, like,
but
you're
I
looking at
want
the physical
to
book.
support the people making these games, like especially the small studios that are putting stuff out. I want to support them. I want to buy the stuff, but before I buy it, I want to make sure it's one of the types of games I want to run. Like, especially because I've got the experience to sort of know what I like running. Right?
Exactly. Like, and I don't get the kind of people who are like, if you don't know whether you like this game or not, don't buy the game. Like, excuse me, there are very few places that are like, yeah, try the game. And we don't sell games here, but you can certainly play them. They exist. I live near a board game cafe. It's pretty rad. However, they don't exist everywhere.
So, and, like, I've never seen one that exists with, like, a lot of different role-playing games. Like, I've seen, drop in, like, D&D and Pathfinder and that sort of thing, but never like, hey, I want to try this weird niche RPG. Let's sit down and play it.
If I had, like, actual time and energy, I feel like I would actually want to run sort of a...
Oh, yeah, that'd be a lot
of fun. Where I could, like, intro some new games to people, because there's so many really good ones that just don't get the attention that I think they deserve, just because they're small. Yeah. And they're made by small groups who don't have the, budget to advertise and get their games in everywhere. But
I mean, you look at a system like Overlight, which I promise, I mentioned it in the last podcast, and I've gotten some messages like, I've heard of Overlight, I know nothing about it, can you please talk about it on the podcast? I promise I will review Overlight as soon as I get through the thick tome that is the Overlight system. I promise I will review it. I'll get there someday. What I've read, the first, like, 50 pages, because I'm busy and I've been taking kind of a couple weeks off.
Stuff that you have to do?
Well, not over the last couple of weeks. Let's be real. I've been on winter break for my real job.
Yeah, but you also, like, need to take breaks. Like...
Also, I've been working on, like, custom content for folks, which I'll get to in the middle of the podcast. We're going to do our first advertising corner.
Oh.
What? Yeah.
Can I cuss during that? I'm sorry.
Fucking sure. I guess. Like, I don't care. You can make as many. I've always said we can swear on this podcast.
It's just gonna get bleeped.
No, it won't. You can say fuck as many times as you like. It doesn't get us in the explicit tag.
I thought it did.
Nope.
Oh, I thought we had like a limited number of fucks.
Nope.
Nice.
Anyway,
listen to the DMC AdviceCast, Unlimited Fucks.
Let's get to our first question. All right.
Yeah, I guess I only have 1382 more hours of recording time on my computer.
Christ. Our first question for today's podcast comes from Winged Chickadee on Tumblr. Winged Chickadee asks, how do I keep a game interesting for old players and not too overwhelming for new players? Sorry, that word is overwhelming, not overwhelming, for new players. Sure? Yeah, positive.
Overwhelming.
I myself am a new DM, so I don't have a lot of experience yet to judge. So here's, not to be overly critical of you, Winged Chickadee, but there's an issue in the premise of the question. And I think Emily and I can speak to this maybe more than Bobby, but I'm
curious because I have a feeling you're going to have the exact same advice, but we'll see.
We're both old players, Emily and I. Bobby is relatively new to the scene comparatively.
Ish.
And I've been doing this
I think you've been playing for quite a while, haven't you, Bobby?
Yeah, I've been playing for quite a while. I've had a little bit of a break between because...
Yeah, newer to
DMing, absolutely, because I developed confidence or something.
Here's the deal. We just want to play. Like, it sounds so simple, but there's not a whole lot you have to do to keep a game interesting for old players. We can usually find our own fun, even if it's not there.
I also can guarantee that you are 100% worrying too much about having something complicated in order to satisfy an old player.
Oh, absolutely.
Just think of how many formulaic, like, TV shows, for example, you've enjoyed in your life. And it's not because the story is unpredictable and complicated. It's because we as people just like story. Just like we like playing these games. And especially as a new DM, you really don't want to try and get too complicated. It's going to be, it's perilous to go complicated. You can fall into a lot of traps.
I'm going to walk you back a little bit there. You don't even have to have necessarily a great story for it to be fun. No. Recently, our group of friends has been talking about the movie Equilibrium starring Christian Bale. And that movie does not have a very original story, nor even a great story. but it is fun to watch.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to have an original, super new, complicated idea or story or premise.
Or even really much of a story.
Yeah.
Like,
just something.
your players will create a story.
Absolutely.
Just create a framework for them. Old players are either A, assholes that you'll never keep happy, and I've had some of those. You just want to, stealing a phrase from a wise friend of mine, you just want to eat those boys out of your table. Or you get the old players like me and Emily who are just like chilling and we're just here for fun.
Yeah, we'll have fun
absolutely.
and we'll make our own fun and we'll make sure that other people around us are having fun. And that's the other thing. To help new players be less overwhelmed, if you've got a mix of old and new players, that's perfect. Your older players can
like,
help
sorta,
the newer ones.
That's sort of what happens at my table, because not to brag about how good I am in answering this question, but I'm a relatively new DM with like players where this is like their second tabletop game, and players who have been playing tabletop for as long as I've been like a conscious human being. So that's sort of what I've found happening at my table. Like, the old players do help the new players a lot, which is great, because, you know, less work for me. I do find it sort of helps to, like, mechanics-wise, sort of, like, get the newer players into, like, more streamlined classes. Like, I had a player, one of the new players wanted to play a wizard, for example. And I sort of talked her into, like, no, maybe you should be a sorcerer, because you can have, like, a few spells that you know very well. And now her character makes fun of wizards for being nerds.
I don't know any other sorcerer who's ever done that.
No, me neither. Only great ones. Only great ones do that.
Here's the deal with overwhelming new players. There's a place, a time, and a way for that to work. And I think the best instance of that was, so Emily and I met through like the early stages of the blog that I run. I put out a call for people to play a game, and it was mostly like people new to tabletop role-playing games, and me and Emily. Like, we were the only two people that had played before. And if I remember correctly, the first thing I did for you guys is you're part of a caravan, and the caravan's attacked by a lot of things. Go. And it created...
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a terrible memory, but that sounds about right.
Yeah, it was, because that was the way you guys found...
I remember the cave with the kobolds and the dragons, but... Yeah,
you guys were attacked by kobolds. You were guarding a caravan that was attacked by kobolds.
Yeah.
But in the new players, it was so funny for them to go, oh, there's lots of things around us. Because they're instantly in the world. They're instantly worried about their characters. They're instantly like, oh, I'm new to this, but so is my character. Let's figure this out. And it's such a cool way for them to learn the mechanics of the game in a way that there's a little, like, some stakes. Like, they still feel part of your game, but they don't feel like a hindrance because everybody is... first step, learning a new character.
Yeah, starting at low levels for new players is a really good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Yep.
Because you have fewer moving pieces to a low-level character.
I can't tell you the number of times Emily and I have played in games run, either me playing in a game run by Emily or in a game run by another one of our friends, that we pick up a new character and we're like, oh, I can't do X, Y, or Z with this character. That was the go-to that I'm used to by now. Let's try something else. And so your older players are also going to be learning alongside new players, unless they're really, really familiar with the classes, in which case they're going to have fun showing off, which can honestly help motivate some new players to be like, oh, that person knows what they're doing, and that's all the cool stuff that they can do. But don't let other people show off too much.
And as an anxious mess myself, I can say that if you're actually worrying about this and you're not sure if people are having fun, I think we often forget that we can just ask.
Oh yeah.
Ask. Yeah.
So even though it might seem like sort of a little bit of a scary thing to do, just after a game, just be like, just ask people. You can ask them one-on-one, you can ask them as a table, whatever you feel comfortable with, just to get an idea.
Yeah.
And you can also ask leading questions about, is there something you would like to see in the game? Did you like this thing I did? If there's something specific you did that you want feedback on. Or if you're like, did this feel a little rushed to you? You can see if they have the same perception of what's happening at the table as you do. Because a lot of the stuff that's happening that you might be anxious about is probably happening in your own head and isn't necessarily happening in the head of anyone else.
Oh yeah,
table.
like
And that's
for my game, I actually after I think like the first arc and maybe like a little bit of the second, I sort of put out like I gave all my players like a little Google Forms fake fantasy OkCupid profile, which is basically like, what are you liking about the game? What are you not liking about the game? And what is your character looking for? Because there were a few people who like had not, like the newer players, a few of them hadn't really like done much character thinking yet, of course, because you know they weren't really used to it. So that was sort of a nice little like, those leading questions I found really helped. I know most games probably aren't fake fantasy OkCupid themed, but it was a fun little thing.
Asking your
But
players
that's
is
fantastic,
just
by the way.
good practice overall. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking specifically about, so in one of our games we had what is now referred to as the Tamsi situation or the Tamsi arc, where I warned the players ahead of time. I was like, so I'm thinking about doing something very different from other stuff I've run before. And I think I checked in with you guys at like 4 different points during the story. I was just like, is everybody doing okay? Is everybody having fun?
Yeah.
Is this too much
Yes.
for folks? And luckily everybody was like, it is a lot, but I'm also having fun.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. I always sort of enjoy that type of session anyways. It's not always what I'm looking for in a session, but yeah. I'm always willing to be entirely creeped out and not sure what's happening and trying
Long
to figure
story
it out
short,
and worried about it.
The Tamsi arc was a very messed
No,
up arc.
it was fingernails.
It was fingernails.
It was fingernails, which are much worse than teeth.
There was a weird entity made up of fingernails and like bits pulled from fingernails. And it was like a very weird arc in which most people died but didn't actually die. It was made to be a stressful situation.
Time was acting weird, all sorts of things.
Yeah. So it was a situation that I felt the need to kind of check in on folks. And it doesn't matter if like that, it's a group of folks who are really comfortable with you, or if you're playing with a new party, check in. The players will usually tell you exactly what they think.
Yeah, check in on the story, check in, like,
especially
if you notice someone's, like, feeling, like, if you notice someone seems to be struggling, it's also cool to, like, sort of check in and be like, hey, do you want some help? I've noticed you've had trouble picking your spells, or whatever people have trouble with. I don't know, I don't pick spells.
100%. And yeah. And exactly, like, if you're feeling worried, and it actually, the more you're checking in, and the easier you take any sort of, well, I didn't really like this thing, the more likely you're going to get these sort of candid responses that will make you feel like, okay, yeah, no, people are actually enjoying this, I'm fine, I don't need to worry that I need to go somewhere just to make you guys happy. And if they keep on showing up at your table, guess what? They're showing up for a reason, and that reason is probably they're having fun. So you're probably fine.
Yeah,
you're probably trying to be super conscientious, and you're worrying way more than you need to.
Our next question comes to us from an anonymous user on Tumblr. The anonymous user asks, any advice on playing over Discord or online in general? My party's always played in person, but we kind of fell apart, and what's left of us want to start up with some other distant folks. We're used to playing in real life, so we might need some pointers. You have come to the right fucking spot, because all 3 of us run at least one game or have run games using Discord before.
And playing a bunch.
And
on
playing
occasion.
a bunch. In fact, pretty much
more
Yeah.
weekly to more than weekly sometimes.
Yeah, well, we can get my game together.
So my first tip for running a game on Discord is be prepared to be descriptive and don't a lot of us rely a lot on our facial expressions and hand gestures to talk. You're going to have to start not doing that and using your voice. Use your voice for emphasis. And it seems really simple and basic, but just being enthusiastic with how you speak really will help retain attention. You can also play, like, if you've got a stationary mic, you can play with the distance between yourself and the mic. Granted, don't, like, go up and, like, get real... Yeah, don't turn it into an ASMR
Unless
session.
everyone's into that.
Unless your Twitch chat asks you to. Yeah, it's not really all that much harder than running an in-person game. Roll20 is a resource that lots of online DMs use, and it's really good for dungeons and stuff, but you don't have to rely on it too
especially
heavily.
if you're playing a more narrative game, like Fate or...
So, like, if you're... Yeah, sorry, continue.
Yeah, like, I think most of the games I'm running online, like, I think I've never actually run a game using Roll20 online, just because I tend to be more descriptive, and, like, part of that's, like, my first DM
There's
game
also
is
the crap
the
talk.
battle mat is also where we keep the snacks, so a little bit more theater of the mind. But, yeah, like, especially where, sometimes Roll20 does tend to slow down computers, say, hypothetically. Don't know anyone who deals with that. But yeah, like, Roll20 is not a necessity,
The crap top always cooperates with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It hasn't cut out a few times while recording this podcast. But, yeah, like, it's not a necessity. Like, really, you don't need much more than you would need, like, to run a game in person. Like, having real dice is nice, but again, you don't even really need that. You can use online rollers. Yeah, like, my main issue has been, like, making sure nobody's, like, losing attention and, like, trying to keep people's attention span, because I've noticed, like, sometimes it's a little harder to, like, notice when someone's drifting off than, like, when they're at your table and are just, like, visibly dissecting a cookie.
It's sort of one of those things where where that's going to be the hardest adjustment.
Also, time zones
when
and
you're
scheduling.
Playing and GMing and, but I think that, but time zones, the thing is, that's an added complication, but the thing being, you actually have that problem because you can play with people who are really distant. Like, I love the fact that there is way more online stuff happening, because when you've got busy schedules, it's way easier to get everyone together if they don't have to leave their house.
That is true.
They can just do it online. And I think you'll find that the first couple sessions will be a little awkward, almost as if you're starting new characters or starting a new group, because you're just sort of getting adjusted to not being in the same room as people. Mm-hmm. But if what you're trying to do is I think mainly, is the keeping the attention. And personally, what I try and do is I try and make sure I'm switching spotlight a lot more than I would do in person.
Yeah,
because in person, I can judge if someone's drifting. It's a lot harder to do online.
Yeah, and, like,
so
as a player, like,
if I've got
playing online, too, it's a lot easier to, like, be a little bit more, like, focused on, like, the spotlight scene that's happening when you are in person, like, when you're watching your friends do things, than, like, when you're on the computer and, like, there's this little, like, asshole in the back of your brain going, like, Tumblr's right there, and you could just check it. Yes.
I just always make sure to play online naked. Like, it really brings out a lot of confidence to just sit there and play whatever role-playing game you're trying to play and just leave it all hanging out there, because they don't know, and you don't tell them, except on your podcast that will go out to a few hundred people. But
I'll never play the same way again.
So you're telling me that I should stop sending out game selfies?
Well, they would be better if they were nude.
Jesus
but,
Christ.
You know. In all seriousness, I don't play naked. Like, that's weird. But
yeah, don't play naked unless everyone's agreed.
But there is a certain, I don't want to say comfort, but there is also a certain amount of security in being able to just kind of like sit back in your chair and slouch and just
drink your tea and do your knitting and
do
everything else that Ellie yells at you for.
Hey, I don't yell at you for doing your knitting, except when we're recording a podcast and it can be heard on the first episode of said podcast.
Sounds fake, but okay.
Yeah, and then if you, like Ellie was saying, like Roll20 is fantastic. So if you do games that require a lot of...
You said doo-doo.
I did. I knew you were about to say that too the moment it was out of my mouth.
Ended with yawn and then doo-doo.
Never if you get doo-doo in your mouth.
If you do a lot of tactical combat or things that require maps, or you're used to using a lot of visuals or props, Roll20 or I know there's other online tabletop, virtual tabletop things. Wow, I can speak really well.
Here's the deal. I know that they're out there, but if you're gonna
I've just never used them.
If you're gonna use a virtual tabletop, I've explored a lot. Roll20 is the one that's got the resources, and it
it's
might
free.
be because Wizards. Yeah, it might be because Wizards of the Coast is now partnering with them, and so they get more of the stuff. But they have if you're gonna play any system, chances are good that they have an integrated character sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For that system. And they've just put the most work into it.
Yeah, and I mean, some of them are user-made, so you can even get some really obscure systems that have stuff set up for you already. The other thing I really like about Roll20 is that you can actually play sound effects and music for your people, and I find that, personally, I like that added sort of immersion or mood setting when I'm playing online. Like, I like it when I'm playing in person too, but I find it particularly helpful when I'm playing online for keeping my attention where it needs to be.
Yeah, that's the one thing I do miss about running online without Roll20.
Yeah.
Because, the dwarf glam rock game would be highly enhanced if I could just, blare guitar at you at any given time just for funsies.
Yes.
I'm not sure that that's true, but... Okay.
No, it 100 that game, that the 80s dwarf street racing 80s band game would 100% be enhanced by exactly that.
All right.
That's the tone of that game.
Let's
just say.
But I mean, I'm right now scrolling through all of the different games that they have sheets for, and oh boy, they don't have kind of my one thing that's a test for if they have some really obscure systems, but they do have some really obscure systems on here, and really outdated systems that are still somewhat popular. They don't have anything for Coda, and I really like the Coda system, and eventually I'll force my crew of friends to play a Lord of the Rings Coda game, because that was the best Lord of the Rings world role-playing system.
I mean,
that was just kind
I'm
of
a Lord
abandoned.
of the Rings nerd, so...
I do. We'll get you there.
So you know that it won't take very much convincing.
Yeah.
Do you want to play a Lord of the Rings game? Yes.
Well, okay, so we're gonna
I won't even
go
ask
off on
what
a brief
system.
tangent.
I'll just
Wait,
be
us
like,
going
yes.
off on a brief tangent sounds fake.
So
Never.
one of my favorite things about the Coda system, so there are quote-unquote character classes, but you could totally make a character without a character class, and the game is just you could do that if you want. It's cool. It's fun. You could just literally play a hobbit. Just play one. Just play some random fuck who gets brought into the adventures.
I mean, we
okay.
all know exactly what race I'm playing. There is no question in anyone's mind, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all about the elf life. That's the one.
So we're going to do a new segment on the show that I hope will be pretty regular, that I'm tentatively calling the Merchant Shop. This is gonna be where
Did you reject capitalist hour?
Yeah, I feel like that might be a little bit.
What
too
about Feral Jake's
Capitalist
House
Corner.
of Advertisement?
I missed the alliteration on the first one, and I do apologize. Ooh, Feral Jake's, yes.
Absolutely not.
I thought we were friends.
So, most podcasts do this, and we're going to do it too. But we're going to offer advertising. We're going to offer messages. You can pretty much pay us to say whatever you want.
Within reason.
Within reason. So if you want to buy an advertising slot, you can either message me on Tumblr through the Dungeon Masters Consortium. That's dungeonmastersconsortium.tumblr.com. Or you can email me at dmcbeholder@gmail.com. And we'll talk about what you want to sell. We'll do advertisements. So if you have a business, if you do commissions, if you just want to get a message out there to somebody who really loves D&D, if you want me to just record a weird NPC thing and put it in a podcast, I'll do it. I don't care. I want money. So
to do things like buy foods.
Yeah. We're hosted through Podbean, and we do pay them for that. So a lot of what you pay will go to things like upgrading equipment and paying for our hosting services and stuff like that. And some of it, hopefully, maybe will go to us so that we can continue doing things like this and maybe someday do a lot of things like this. That would be really cool. So that being said, our first advertisement comes from me.
Wait, does that mean you're paying
because
us?
How much did you pay yourself for this?
I paid myself a very reasonable rate for what I'm about to say. So I do commissioned work. I both create custom gaming content for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition specifically. That's kind of where my expertise lies. D&D 3.5 I can still work with. I ran that for a long time. But one of the things that I get commissioned a lot for is actually writing music. I wrote the theme for this podcast. I will write character themes. I'll write you tracks for whatever. It's $20 for 20 seconds. So if you want a minute-long track, it's $60. It's basically $1 a second. And that goes for you. What you'll get is a finished track that is just ready to play. It'll be downloadable. I'll give you a private SoundCloud link that you can send to people so you can show it off. Stuff like that. But I also make custom content. If you're curious about that custom content, you can find a lot of it through searching the homebrew tag on the blog dungeonmastersconsortium.tumblr.com. And I'll make classes, subclasses, races, items, what have you. I'll make it. So, yeah, if you want to hire me, again, you can message me through dungeonmastersconsortium.tumblr.com, or you can email me at dmcbeholder@gmail.com. If you want some content and you want to support the podcast, that's another way to do it. Our second advertisement is for the D&D Apothecary. The D&D Apothecary is an Etsy store that sells really cool fantasy-themed candles, bath bombs, and soaps. Right now, she's got... How many different kinds of soaps is it? Oh boy, it's a lot. Yeah. So if you go to the Etsy store, you click on the product type you want. So either a soap, candle, or a bath bomb. There are 2 currently that aren't sold out. However, she'll be getting more in soon. But the ones that you can order currently are Halfling's Tavern or Fragrance Free. But
there's the Woodland Ranger, which is for the candles, which is a very, very, let's just say, lesbian lumberjack inspired.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you know.
the candles are really cool. I know the ones that are currently available are Health Potion, Vampire, Woodland Ranger, Blacksmith, Elven Garden, and Halfling's Tavern. And those are really cool. Here's the deal with all of the products, though. It doesn't matter whether it's a bath bomb, whether it's soap, or whether it's a candle. It's got dice inside. Like, the soaps are... You can see through the soap, and you can see the dice that you're going to get with the soap. The candles have a metal die in them. The big candles have a D20. The smaller ones, I think, have a D6, maybe a D12. I don't remember. But they come with dice. So not only are you getting a really cool product, you're getting dice. So the Etsy store that you can find all this really cool stuff is just etsy.com/shop/DND. That's the letters D, N, D, apothecary. Etsy.com/shop/DND apothecary. And you're going to get lots of cool products. I am currently burning the Elven Garden candle, and it is amazing. It makes my room smell like roses and
not like old carpet at all. Tie it back.
Yeah, if you run a gaming store, buy a bunch of these candles, and your store won't smell like old carpet. It'll smell like health potions and rangers and vampires.
All of which are better than old carpet.
All of which are objectively better than old carpet. Better. The last advertisement we have is for someone who does art commissions. Art Blaster can be found on artblaster.tumblr.com. Does a lot of really good character art for those that really just want some really cool character art. He did a lot of the art for the DMC game characters. He'll probably continue to do so because he's a really great artist, and I enjoy paying him to create really cool art for me.
Yeah, and he's really good at character design from a description.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes,
he makes some really unique, really good faces, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So if you go to artblaster.tumblr.com, you'll find his commission post. You'll be able to message him and start getting to work on a commission. So consider commissioning him. He's a really great artist. He does a lot of great work. I can vouch 100%. If you have any questions about art, I do have art samples that he's done for me. Just message me and be like, that sounds really cool. Can I see the art style? It's very good, very modern. He's turned a couple story arcs of my games into comic book covers, which was really cool. So yeah, that's artblaster.tumblr.com. Our final question for this podcast comes from another anonymous Tumblr user. Anonymous says, what do you all get out of DMing? I know some people are into it, but I was never able to relax enough to enjoy it.
I mean, first of all, you don't actually have to relax to enjoy it, because I am like an anxious mess of a person who never relaxes about it and always still enjoys it. So,
So I used to write a lot of short plays. Like, that's something very few people know about me, but I used to write like a lot of short 10 to 15 minute plays. And it's the same, it scratches the same itch. It's a creative outlet for me to be able to create a world that people can inevitably mess up. Like, I enjoy creating a sandbox for people to play in. I enjoy creating stories that other people can participate in and become active participants in, and not just read or see or watch.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. But yeah, it's similar to that for me as well. It's time for Bobby to speak in this episode. Yeah.
Hey, we did get a lot of comments saying, I wish Bobby talked more.
Oh, look at all these words.
So, it's all good.
I'm sure there were also, they were thinking, man, but Emily should shut up a little.
No, never.
No, I don't. We never got that comment.
Well, they didn't say it.
well, to be fair, it was only really during the map making one that
and
you
the
went
map one
ham
was
last time.
for you.
That's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, yes, I was
anyway,
saying, it's similar to writing for me, but like with instant feedback that you're doing when you're doing things well, and that's a huge thing for me, because like writing, I enjoy it, but I do, like, sort of tend to, like, get in on myself and worry a lot, like, while I'm in the process of writing. But while I'm in the process of DMing, I'm just like, here's what happened. I said it. It's funny. It's real. And there's, like, a table full of people who are eating my cookies and saying, like, yes, Bobby, you've done well, and we appreciate you. Here's gifts. Also, my players give me gifts.
I know. So, also, like, for me, I know I'm not a great fiction writer. I'm a much better technical writer. So it's actually really fun to be able to create in a collaborative space where I don't actually have to worry about it being, like, cliche or, like, forced in this area or there's a big plot hole here. It doesn't actually matter as much because you're creating with other people and having fun with other people and that sort of thing. So, like,
I enjoy being creative, but forcing the work.
I enjoy being creative, but I don't want to
necessarily forcing the work. So it's a creative outlet for creating stories and sort of directing the type of story, the tone of story I would like to be able to do. That, you know, I can do something cliche because we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, for example, and that's what we're here for. I don't have to worry about it being, you know, a good polished work that would be published or anything
and
like
also,
that.
May I mention, I'm not going to get, like, too sappy and mushy here, but I do like...
This is also going to be my primary
like hanging out and playing with my friends. Like, it's fun. Everyone comes over to your house and pretends to be an elf for a few hours, and your neighbors hate you, but that's okay. Like, it's just nice to have, like, an excuse to hang out. Like, a scheduled excuse to hang out and fucking say, hey, here's something, like, fun we do together. And that's cool. And I love you guys.
Yeah. 100% my reason that I GM the most is because, A, I like playing these games with my friends, and B, I like creating these stories and creating this fun for my friends. So I like bringing it to the table so that we can all have fun together. And I got into GMing because we wanted to play these games, but somebody had to be willing to GM.
Yeah, same sort of thing here. I got into
that's...
GMing because I was like, hey, these games would be a really great way for me to meet new people in this town where I don't really know anyone. Who's running? Oh. Hey! So I started running a game, and now I have friends.
I got into DMing for a completely different reason, in that I used to play with a group that was okay, but was kind of filled with the kind of people you think of when you think of running a D&D game. Like, it was a bunch of dudes who made sketchy jokes and made me feel uncomfortable. I think that is less and
less the case
now.
Yeah. But it was very much the case when
it's very good.
We were getting our start. So, yeah, when we were the youths,
like when I was
when we were youths.
Yeah, I mean, you're not that much younger
I'm an infant.
But I got started because I saw the DM running a game. I was like, I could do that, but better. It was very much like, I could see what I don't like about what you're doing, and I could fix that.
See,
there's so many things you can get out of it, and it's different for everybody. And it's also not for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not enjoying it, you don't gotta do it. Find
no.
something
In fact,
else
if
to
you're
do
not
it.
enjoying it, don't do it.
Absolutely not. This is a game. You're here to have fun too.
That said, if the reason that you stop is because you feel overwhelmed by it, that's a really normal feeling for beginner DM, because you're essentially learning to juggle a whole bunch of different things that you're not used to doing yet. And that overwhelmed feeling is, I sort of liken it to the same sort of feeling you get when you're learning to drive a car, or when you're learning to do anything that requires juggling your attention between different things. And it's more practice you do, the less that overwhelmed feeling is. So I still feel like I still don't relax when I'm running, but I don't feel like I'm, oh my god, there's too much happening in my brain.
Yeah, I do relax. I'm very chill. And my advice for you is also, like, if you want to, like, keep running, but, like, you feel you do need to be able to relax because, you know, you're getting anxiety. I would say, like, try and figure out what exactly it is that's stressing you out. Like, if math is stressing you out, like, maybe try a system with, like, minimal math and, like, a lot more storytelling, but, like...
Ooh, good advice.
If improv is getting you down, you might want to try, like, running, like, a more sort of linear dungeon crawl instead of, like, here's a world, do whatever. Like, just, like, changing the tone and, like, the system of your game might just be what works for you.
All right. Good podcast, everybody.
One other thing for me.
We have so many words in us.
Fuck!
We love our friends!
It's also an excuse to use and make maps. So,
Of course it is.
I gotta get that in every
and
podcast,
props.
By the way.
You can make cool props.
Yeah.
And all your friends will think you're really cool.
So that's going to do it for us here at the DMC AdviceCast. If you want to send in a question, you can reach out through dungeonmastersconsortium.tumblr.com or send an email to dmcbeholder@gmail.com. Submit questions. You can submit feedback. If I like your message, I might read it on the air. Please, please, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. I know not all of you pick up the podcast through Apple Podcasts or iTunes, but leaving a rating and review is a really big way to help us out, to get our name out there. Shout out to people that have already done so. People like Sylvia 3018, Pony Power 05.
Oh, who's the person
and my
who said I should
personal
talk
favorite, my personal favorite, Cat Rat Fat Cat.
Good name.
Good name. So, rate us, review us, and I might say your username on the podcast. Thank you all so much for listening, and enjoy the next couple of weeks. We'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Bye.
See you, nerds.
Oh, that was a good podcast.
That was fun.
Nobody even said the word once. Oh yeah, what a good goof that those weird folks made. I sure do remember those, and I'm not recording this weeks after the original recording. Hi, it's me, the Beholder. So, we forgot to mention during our advertisements, if you want to directly support the podcast, we do have a Patreon that you can go ahead and donate through. You get a monthly donation. It gets you a special name badge on the Discord server if you join. There's lots of other free things that you can get too. Higher tiers include things like free custom content, free candles, free adventures, and the highest level tier will actually get you a session run by me. So if you really want to support the podcast, go ahead and head to our Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/DMCBeholder. Again, that's www.patreon.com/DMCBeholder. Your support really means the world to us, whether it's leaving ratings, reviews, or just really kind messages, or monetary support. Really, we do this so that you guys can listen and have a good time. So consider leaving a rating, a review, or supporting us through Patreon. Thanks, guys!